Welcome in to the Hot Read Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, Director of Published Content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network, and I am here in person with Stoney, Keeley, Zach, Lyons, and of course, producer JT. Fellas, how are we doing?
So far, so good.
Doing good. We're at Memo's Mexican Kitchen, like you said. I can have a habanero passion fruit margarita.
How is it?
It is delicious. And what you got?
Watermelon margarita, classic, very good.
Oh, I have watermelon agua fresca because one of us has to stay
how much
sober.
alcohol is in that?
One of us has to stay sober
Gotcha,
and make
gotcha.
sure this, the shit.
And Stoney has one of the wildest concoctions I've seen,
Spanish-style gin and tonic,
which is making me realize that American gin and tonics
Look
blow
at that.
in comparison.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
so boring compared to this.
Katie here always takes care of me when I order the gin and tonic. This has blueberry, cardamom, lemon tonic in it as well, and it is it is hefty. It is good to go here.
We this is maybe the most meta episode of the show we've ever done, because if you're wondering why are they at a Mexican restaurant, a one-off show, we will not be here on a regular basis. We needed a place to film and eat tacos.
Yeah.
And if you've been watching the show for a significant amount of time, you know why we need to eat tacos together, because but we'll get to that when the tacos get here at some point in the episode today.
You'll demonstrate
Perhaps.
why we are here.
No, that's the bit, is I'm going to have the taco and just let it sit there the whole time. I'm never going to eat it. But we needed a place where we could eat tacos and record, and Memo's just like, come on down. We'll hook you up. And so we appreciate them allowing us in today. If you're with us live today, we appreciate you being here. First of all, if you can make sure to let us know in the comments if we sound too loud, too soft, whatever.
Or if you can hear us at all.
If you can hear us at all. If we're just talking to no one, let us know about that in the comments. And also, we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topics. Of course, we're going to talk about the Titans adding Jamal Adams to their safety depth chart today. An interesting decision, to be sure. We'll have opinions on that. And then we're going to get into some pretty typical off-season topics. The entire point of this episode we planned about a month ago was to pick like the deadest time of year to just talk about whatever came to mind while eating tacos. And this morning, the Titans decided to ruin that idea for the show by giving us actually something of import to talk about. So we'll dive into those things as well. But join us in the comments over at BroadwaySportsMedia.com, or excuse me, Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. You can join the comment section of the live stream over there. Okay, fellas, the Titans this morning decided to finally add the veteran safety that they've been teasing since the draft. They have been in the market for at least, one of. They could add more. Who knows? There's still some guys floating out there, and we'll talk about that. But they add Jamal Adams, formerly of the New York Jets, by way of this, or of the Seattle Seahawks by way of the New York Jets. Of course, he's most known for being traded by 2 first-round picks, I believe, the Seahawks, and change to the Jets, and that did not work out for them. He was a free agent. The Titans signed him to a 1-year deal, the money on which we don't know the specifics of, although I saw Buck report today that he's hearing it's a very cheap deal. Not surprising there. We'll know about that in the future. But a flyer deal on a guy that Denard Wilson, the Titans defensive coordinator, has coached in the past. He was his coach during the best of Jamal Adams, former first-team All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, I believe, 2 or 3.
Pro Bowl doesn't really matter.
I don't know.
The point is, he was a first-team All-Pro player at one point in his career.
It's been so long, I forgot.
It was many years ago. This was pre-COVID, and that's what got him this 2 first-round.
Close.
Yeah. So, but he's now a Tennessee Titan and reunited with the coach that he played the best under. I'll start with you, Zach. Earlier today on a football show, you said that this move was, I believe the word you used was perplexing.
Yes.
What was your reaction to this when you saw it?
I mean, I was confused. You're talking about a guy that hasn't played, I would say, really good football since 2020. Mm-hmm. And yes, there is a lost year to an injury, but there are 2 years to book in that lost year that's not really that great. And I know that Mike Keith kind of fluffed up that 2021 season a little bit. And, hey, that's his prerogative. But it was a very pedestrian average season. It was something that you wouldn't have expected from Jamal Adams at the time. But it's something that you maybe can expect for Jamal Adams as the Titans, is a very pedestrian, maybe average season, which sometimes average is all that you need. Right. So I've struggled, though, to figure out who comes off the field. Well, if you listen to the OTP podcast, whether it's by just assumption or not on Mike Keith and Jamal Adams' part, it sounds like Elijah Molden is coming off the field, and it sounds like that he is going to be the incumbent starter or the guy to beat. Elijah Molden has to be next to Amani Hooker.
So I've not listened to it. They alluded
pretty
to that
much.
Okay.
I mean, when they were talking through, they said that so you're going to be playing against, playing right across from Amani Hooker, and how great is that for you, and all this stuff. So it's not. I mean, obviously Elijah Mullen would be the one to come off, but it sounds like he's not coming off just situationally, which is like what a lot of people have been trying to, I guess, on Twitter trying to cope with. Is like, is that okay? This is a situational guy, because I mean, Braden were talking about it, and he was like, well, maybe he's just the goal line heavy safety. And that's great, but that seems like a really small niche to even spend on anything.
Well, and is it Jamal Adams going to sign with a team where he thinks that's his role? He's going to come in having been insinuated to, you're going to play.
So, yeah, I'm a little bit less down on it from a perspective of I didn't know how extensive the injury was that he suffered in 2022 in that first game. We're talking about an injury, for those who have not listened, we're talking about an injury that kept him in a cast, not in a walking boot or anything, like in a cast for 20 weeks. That is 6 months. Not being able to walk, having to have help. He said he had to have help to use the restroom. Like, he talked about it from a psychological standpoint, like he hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And then he came back probably quicker than what most people would come back to. He missed like the first 3 or 4 games of the season last year. And listen, everybody wants to make excuses for Harold Landry, you know, having a slow start. They want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So I kind of thought, it was like, if people are going to give benefit of the doubt to Harold Landry or other players, we should be giving the benefit of the doubt to Jamal Adams, that maybe last year isn't the best representation of the Jamal Adams that you're going to get. And it's not the best representation of the Jamal Adams that Denard Wilson can get, because he talked really heavily about his relationship with Denard Wilson being one of the main factors of choosing here, because Denard Wilson fits the defense around his pieces. And we do not understand really the piece that is Jamal Adams.
Right. Exactly.
But Denard Wilson does.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I have to have faith. And it is a very faith and hopeful signing. I wouldn't say it's a logical, probable, going to be off the rails great kind of signing. It's possible, but it's a very hopeful signing for the Tennessee Titans.
I have a question I want to throw to you, Stoney, but first let's pay a little bit of attention to these.
This is how you eat a taco, by the way.
We're gonna go for it. This is the moment.
Okay, I'm gonna just I might just watch y'all eat these tacos.
This is the pastor, so a little bit of what?
So this is the pastor. This is pork, and then there is
cilantro,
pineapple, cilantro, onions, and it is freaking fantastic.
See,
holy crap!
The government drones, the sheeple around me have told me this is the correct way to hold a taco. I will say these are such small shells that it almost defeats the point of my argument. But the way that I would approach a bigger taco is by holding this way. Like one might approach eating a hot dog and eat it like this.
I don't eat a hot dog like that either.
Or how
you're
I hold it over the top.
I think that's weird.
See, I do it like this. I do it from the side always.
Yeah.
I don't ever hold anything like this, because I mean, how do I eat like that?
Well, you could. You just look funny, I think.
You just cup the back end. Cup the back end like that, so nothing falls out. And then you do it. That's a hot. Oh no.
It's the funniest.
I really don't think it's that weird. I don't know. The people in the comments can let us know how weird that is.
It is the weirdest thing, and you're right. The small size of the tacos doesn't really hit how insane of a person that you
think
are.
You think it's worse when it's a bigger taco?
Yeah, it's worse.
I think it makes more sense when you have such a big taco. You got to get a grip on it. Okay.
I'm sure you got to get a grip on it.
All right.
When it's bigger, you got to have a good grip.
That's a good taco, though.
I'm going to get back to football here. Stoney, there are 3 elements of this signing that I think elicit 3 pretty different answers from me, and I'm curious if you think the same. There's the on-field play element of Jamal Adams, what he's going to contribute when he is healthy and out there.
Yeah.
And there's the element of, is he going to be out there? Can he stay healthy to play? And then the third element is, what kind of impact does it have on the locker room? Maybe to put it politically. So what is your answer to, if I'm asking you from those 3 different standpoints, you know, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, maybe on each of those things for Jamal Adams and the Titans?
I would say I'm pretty lukewarm on the injury history and assuming that he's going to be on the field to begin with. And it's just, man, I want to see it before I believe it kind of deal. Like Zach said, the extent of his injury is pretty deep. I mean, 6 months is a long time to be in a cast. You got to get somebody to help you pull out your thing to use the bathroom. That's not good.
Pull out your enchilada.
Your enchilada, yeah.
Your large
That's-
taco.
Yeah, your
perhaps.
large
That's
taco.
not a good spot to be in.
Right.
Like I want to see 100% fully healthy Jamal Adams out there before I truly feel comfortable about it.
Let me ask you a question,
Okay, let's hear it.
because we kind of want to bring a little bit of non-football element.
Mhm.
I don't think my wife would spend 6 months with me getting me in and out of
No
toilets
way.
and bathrooms.
I wouldn't even ask my wife to.
Oh,
I would just
We can't ask Bucky. Who do you ask?
I
You
would
can ask your cat.
My
I'd
initial
call the
reaction
neighbor.
to that was you guys need new wives. Maybe this is just an element of being relatively newlywed. Does that wear off? Do you think your wives would have done it for you earlier on in your
I think
marriage?
my wife would do it for me now if I asked her.
Yeah.
But I would not. I don't want anybody to see that side of me.
Oh no, it's a compromising position to be put
Yeah.
in.
I
for
don't
sure.
think it will take very long for your wife to get tired of you.
Well, here's the thing. My wife is currently 9 months pregnant.
Yeah.
She's at a point where, and I don't think this is out of bounds. When you're that pregnant, you need help doing some things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, putting some pants on
There-
sometimes, getting in and out of the car. the
You're
shower.
keeping receipts. She ain't gonna view it that way.
Okay.
When
So-
you get like,
so when the
all
bill
right,
comes
yeah.
due for her to help me
Yeah,
back
yeah,
out, it's
she
not.
ain't gonna
That's not how that works.
and you
Okay.
can't bring it up.
Okay.
You'd be
right.
dead.
Then for
Yeah.
sure it's
Yeah.
not happening. That's fair. Okay. It's interesting. I don't want to go too much into the off-field stuff. There's a lot to say there, and you know,
Well, his teammates say, "Oh, high energy guy, love being around him,
Right.
infectious." But
there's some mixed signals. If you like Zach pointed on Twitter earlier today, when you go Google Jamal Adams
Yeah.
and just look at the most recent,
Fans hate him.
right? Fans
Yeah.
hate him. It seems like past media pools that have covered him are awfully not fond of him. You know, as
Do
somebody
Jets media like anybody?
that's a
That's
fair
true.
question. A fair question.
But I think Seattle is a good point, and we all know that he did call someone's wife ugly on Twitter.
That's
in
extremely out of
response,
bounds.
which
Yeah, wildly out of bounds.
I mean, it's Twitter. I mean, we've seen way worse responses on Twitter, not from a professional.
I was about to
person,
say, yeah.
obviously.
If you're in public spotlight, I'd say that's
Yeah.
generally not cool.
Yeah.
I'm as somebody that's actually going to like speak with him. I'm going to keep an open mind, but I just I don't know.
be confrontational
Yeah.
from
I'm
the
gonna-
first moment.
I told Sam Phelan today. I'm gonna tell him my name's Sam Phelan. and
Show
then
him,
just- I'm gonna
show
call
him a picture of your
bum
wife
to
and say,
face.
"I dare you to call this ugly."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the first interactions might be while Easton's on paternity
You might-
leave, and it might be
if
me.
you're gonna
Should
introduce
I-
yourself
should
as
I,
Easton?
Should I introduce myself as Easton
Yes.
and just say some outlandish stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
you're a
you
bum, suck.
absolutely should.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
And then I
absolutely
show
should.
up and unbeknownst just get my ass beat
Yeah.
by an NFL player.
And to whatever it's worth, I guess on that kind of side of things of the Jamal Adams saga, I also listened to the OTP today, and it seems like, you know, that experience not only of just tearing his quad, but then also coming back, but struggling to come back, because it wasn't like he came back for those 9 games last season and played them like consistently towards the end.
Right.
He missed
Yeah.
the whole thing with he's played 10 games in 2 seasons. He played the first game in which he tore the quad, came back in the middle of last season and played 3 or 4 games, had an injury, played the rest of those games, and then was not on the field for the rest of the season. It feels like they talked a lot about him, how he, for better or for worse, was the best safety in the league almost 2 or 3 years ago before that happened. And he talked about how it kind of feels now like a fresh start. It felt like rock bottom, and now it's a fresh start for him to kind of build those building blocks back up. And I feel like his decision to come to the Titans here is not only to kind of get away from that. First of all, it's a smaller market. You're not going back to a big city market like New York where there's less lights on you from the get-go. 2, you're going back to someone who you were with in the beginning, with Denard Wilson, that you have trust and you built rapport with him over the years. And that's someone who I think is going to help him along the way of kind of building that career back up, because like the people have pointed out, it's not like he's an aging veteran that this is just coming in. He's 28. He's going to be 29. It's like he's still on the right side of 30 next year. So I think, like you said, I think I'm willing to give him a fighting chance in the locker room and with the media and everything, because I think this is just kind of him trying to jumpstart his career again. And for what it's worth, like you guys said, it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Super cheap. It's you're not really gambling a lot on it, and if he can help your team out in a major way, I think that's a pleasant surprise and really impactful.
Does anybody know where he went to college?
LSU.
LSU. Okay, I knew it was an SEC school. So I think this is the most relaxed situation he's been in since high school, probably, in terms of
Yeah, I would
media
say very
scrutiny,
similar to
fan scrutiny.
Seattle, right? I mean,
Probably.
wouldn't you think? I mean, Seattle doesn't seem like a big.
I
And that
confidently
Connor
say yes,
Hughes
having
guy
never been to
is
Seattle.
from New York,
Right.
right? Wasn't he a
I
Jets
believe he's a
beat
New York
writer?
guy.
And there's Connor Hughes, Connor Orr, and Connor Rogers. So I get all those three guys
Yeah,
confused.
one of the Connors.
Too many Connors in national media, by
Yeah.
the way. We got to put a stop to
There should
that.
be a
We need to
Connor
clip
cap.
No more
Connor
Connors.
cap.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel about it. I think if you're looking at it in the framework of, okay, the Titans really need to go sign a veteran safety. They not only need a body out there because you've got two guys back there in Amani Hooker and Elijah Molden who aren't reliable in terms of staying on the field and staying healthy. But they also need somebody that can be relied upon from a coverage standpoint because up the middle of the field right now, the boundary of their defense and the spine of their defense could not be any different in terms of coverage ability. The linebackers and safeties just really can't hang. And adding Jamal Adams to that mix doesn't change a thing, in my opinion. He's really, really abysmal in coverage. But that was never the reason why the Seahawks sent 2 first-round picks for him in the first place wasn't because they were dying to get a strong safety who is a phenomenal cover athlete. That's never been his game, even when he was a first-team All-Pro. And so I think, does what he can bring when he's healthy add to this team? Yes. Do I think it fits the Denard Wilson attitude that he's been telegraphing of we're going to play downhill, we're going to play fast and instinctive, we are going to screw up the play for the offense as much as humanly possible and just incite chaos? Yes. Does it fix that coverage problem? No. And our buddy Justin Mello tweeted, and I should have had it pulled up. He tweeted out a list of stats a moment ago, listing off the three key guys in the Titans secondary up the middle: Jamal Adams, Kenneth Murray, and Jack Gibbons. Last season, they combined to allow 101 catches on 126 targets. That's north of 80% last year per PFF. 952 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns between the three of them. Adams and Murray in particular were especially brutal. And Justin says, we'll see how Wilson deploys his defenders, but odd strategy here after investing so much at cornerback. So does it make you think is it wish casting? Is it tinfoil hat to say they may not be done? Like, would it change your mind at all on this signing if they went and added another veteran safety who's a stronger, if Justin Simmons was suddenly a Titan by the end of the month?
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either.
It changes a lot, I think, for
Right.
the team in general, because Justin Simmons is an upgrade over Jamal Adams and arguably an upgrade over Elijah Molden, depending on who you ask. But I definitely think he's an upgrade over Elijah Molden. I just don't know how much of an upgrade.
You said on the OTP they made it seem like Adams is going to be a player.
Yeah.
But asking you, ignoring that, are we sure he's a better safety than Elijah Molden
I
is?
don't think he is.
I don't
But
either.
I think that it depends on how much Denard Wilson views the injury. Like, how much did the injury really affect what you saw
From
in
Adams.
2023? Because I think that's really it's kind of like the Elijah Molden stuff, right? A lot of people are like, well, Elijah Molden's injury prone. Well, he only missed 1 season. The other 2 seasons he's played 3 games or missed 3 games. But that season total missed 3 total.
His rookie
those
season,
seasons.
he played the whole thing.
Yeah, I think he only missed one.
Missed one
his
game?
rookie season,
Yeah, okay.
2 last year.
Okay.
And so I think we as a society automatically see a season missed. Well, this guy sucks. I don't know why people don't do that for Harold Landry, but whatever. That's just me.
It's a different rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's just a different rabbit hole to go down.
The hater
But, I mean,
campaign does not
it's
stop
very.
on
I feel like the views of Elijah Molden and Jamal Adams and maybe other players compared to Harold Landry, it's very hypocritical views, conflicting views. So we always said, don't expect much from Harold Landry because he's coming back from injury. But here we are, people that are viewing now the Jamal Adams signing, thinking, well, he came back from a more gruesome injury than Harold Landry, by the way, of rehab and everything, at least for him. And we're expecting him to be all-pro Jamal Adams. And now Elijah Molden, everybody just is like, well, that whole season, well, he's injury prone. Well, that whole medical staff handled the situation of a player coming back from injury like crap.
Yeah.
I mean, they specifically kept teasing Elijah Molden throughout the week that year, and then on game days they made him inactive.
Right.
And
We
so,
see him all 3 days of practice.
Right.
He'd be running full speed.
that sounds like an issue with the Tennessee Titans, not an issue with Elijah Molden. That sounds like maybe he shouldn't have been out at practice if he wasn't really ready. I don't buy this whole injury prone thing with Elijah Molden the same way I don't really buy it with Amani Hooker. Just because you miss a game, every player is bound to miss a game or two in a season. Can we be honest
17
about
game
that?
season now.
Yeah,
They're wanting to
about
make
to
it
be
an
18.
18 game season.
To me, injury prone is you miss 2 games, you're back for 2 games. You miss a game, you're back.
Yeah.
You missed 9 games because you were out for half the season with an
Right.
injury, and then you came back and that's
Yeah.
Marcus was injured prone.
Marcus
yeah,
was injury
100%.
prone.
And
Any given week, you had no idea if he was going to play.
Elijah Molden and Amani Hooker haven't really seen, to me, that level.
That back and forth.
I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is kind of with them too because he's missed 5 games. He's played through injury.
Who will
he's
bookmark you, by the way. if
Yeah,
you're
he
not
will
careful.
bookmark you.
Watch
And
out.
I'm fine with, but we gotta understand there's wear and tear on these bodies.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Stoney, I'll pitch this over to you. I mean, Jamal Adams, what should people expect from Jamal Adams compared to previous? I mean, what Jamal Adams are we going to see?
I really have no idea, man. I mean, really, to see how the injury impacts him, how he comes back from this, he's never really been like the rangy cover guy up the middle of the field. Like he's always been the downhill energy, rah guy, the good tackler. The thing that I'm really curious about is that I feel if they're going to roll with Amani Hooker and Jamal Adams as their 2 starting safeties, like who's going to be the guy that they drop deep to just patrol center field?
That's my question.
Well, it has
Like,
to be Hooker, right?
Because if
It would have
let's
to
say we
be,
go
yeah.
back- let's say we go back in time. And I tell you,
But do you trust Hooker
this
in that
season?
spot?
You're going to get that same season, the same All-Pro season from Adams that he had in 2019,
Yeah.
whatever it was. Does that even fit with what? Like, does that actually solve what they need? I'm not sure
I
that
don't
really
think
solves
so.
the
Well,
problem in the first place.
They need pass rush.
It
Well, and
solves
see,
a different
that's-
problem. It doesn't solve the problem they have at safety. It solves a different problem.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's my devil's advocate on this whole safety issue. And it's something why I tried to stress I don't think Justice Simmons is that big of an upgrade over Elijah
Yeah.
Molden that everybody wants to make it out. Safeties are the running back. You think linebackers are with the way
Right.
they get paid.
Mhm.
But as far as a position that's kind of irrelevant to needing a ton of talent at right
Kinda
now,
plug and
currently in the
playable.
league,
Yeah.
is safety.
Okay.
Because the way they deploy 2 highs and the way they do certain things with coverages, I would argue is like you're not wasting the cornerback room that you got because you were kind of alluding. You weren't really saying that, but you're kind of alluding to the fact like,
They're just
well,
super
they got all
different.
these 3 cornerbacks now. These are your safeties. Is like, no, these are your 3 cornerbacks. You can get away with having these kinds of safeties.
Right.
So I think it's more. While it kind of sounds like I'm a big Jamal Adams guy, which I'm not. I still don't like the signing. I do think that there is a strategy involved where it's like they pivoted. They didn't get as, and we talked about this on football or a football show today. They were trying to get Azeez Al-Shaair and Danico Autry. They didn't get those 2 guys, and they pivoted to get other people.
Sure.
They pivoted towards let's focus on the cornerbacks, let's focus on the defensive line. Well, because you focused on those things, and defensive line depth is an issue, because you focused on those things, you can maybe get away with Amani Hooker's your 1 deep safety, Jamal Adams an extra body in the box with 2 linebackers that just crowds the running lanes and can get at the passer. Now you got 5 guys in the middle of the field when you drop Jamal Adams down that you can send a blitz from anywhere.
Right.
I mean, it's not perfect. It's not great, but I think that's the vision.
And I'm with you on that. I posited earlier today, what's the more confusing offseason move the Titans have made? I really, they've made $1 billion this offseason, and I really have only questioned 2. The Jamal Adams signing and the Kenneth Murray signing.
Yeah.
Those are the only the ones that I have.
And there's
still
2 such similar players.
right, exactly. And so I asked, what's the more confusing signing? I think the easy answer there is Kenneth Murray, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And I think you kind of extrapolate that idea out. If you're trying to look at it from they're kind of wasting this cornerback room because of X position, I think it's more the linebackers than it is the safeties. So I'm with you in the sense that if you told me one of those 2 positions is going to hurt them a lot this season, I would put my money on it's linebacker that's far more painful than the safety position.
Do you think it's more confusing because you kind of you toss a little face out there?
I've come around on Kenneth Murray a little bit because I've been
Betrayal.
watching.
This is a betrayal of the highest.
Did you
order.
invite this guy?
I've been watching a lot of the 2023 Ravens defense. I got a piece coming out tomorrow morning on stackingtheinbox.com about it. And there are certain plays that I watch Patrick Queen or Kyle Hamilton or Roquan Smith and
The
think,
Titans have one of those, by the way, now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
I heard about that.
Mhm.
But I watch plays and I think, oh, that could be Kenneth Murray. And if that's just what they use him for, then I think it could actually end up being.
What do you mean by that? What kind of player are you seeing? You're like,
So-
that can be.
They will have Patrick Queen standard second level positioning as a linebacker, and then they motion him before the snap, motion him in behind a wave of, say they've overloaded the left side of the offensive line with 3 defensive linemen and a pass rusher on that side. They're just bombarding, crashing that side of the line. And then Patrick Queen comes in and just kind of picks and chooses, like where's the lane open, and gets through to pressure the quarterback.
Okay.
It works
Like a
because
defensive cheat motion.
yeah,
kind of,
it works because the Ravens have so many good defensive linemen, pass rushers, and linebackers. But you can see a world where, okay, well, if the Titans, let's put the pieces together, if T'Vondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Sebastian Joseph Day are what we think they can be, Harold Landry, Arden
Keandre
Key.
Coburn.
Yeah, exactly.
Quentin Bohanna.
Yeah, whoever that is.
You question his
Yeah.
existence?
I'm
You don't think
pretty
it's
sure
real?
that that is a witness protection alias.
Gotcha.
Because there's no way someone's named Quentin Bohanna.
So you see, like, okay, Patrick Queen has a one line to get to the quarterback, and he pressures the guy. You think, okay, well, that's Kenneth Murray's skill set. So if they put him in that role, he could excel at it. Now, you could also say, well, if you're an offensive coordinator and you see Kenneth Murray out on the field, you know he's just going to make a straight line for the ball. I think it's also, I would also point out and draw the comparison to Kyle Hamilton. They play him up at linebacker on some reps. It's Hamilton, Roquan Smith, and Patrick Queen across the formation, and Kyle Hamilton's kind of the flat defender, and he's really good at getting to the ball. So specifically talking about this Houston Texans game where the Bobby Slowick, CJ Stroud adjusted and said, hey, we can't go at the middle of this defense. Let's try and get the ball at the perimeter in space and try and make somebody miss and make it happen. Kyle Hamilton's right there on the play making
But
the
that
tackle.
can't be Jamal Adams, can it? Does he have the speed to get on the edge?
Well, what I was going to say is, like, that could be Kenneth Murray in
Okay.
that spot. That's the comparison I'm drawing.
Gotcha.
Maybe you could use Jamal Adams in that spot. And I think ultimately that's probably where he's the most successful right away for this Titans defense. If they just try to, like, play him up towards the line of scrimmage, don't ask him to press guys, hang with guys down the field, just see ball, get ball kind of deal. And that's why I texted you and Mike earlier and said, I feel like they're trying to recreate Kyle Hamilton in the aggregate. Like, they've got Kenneth Murray, see ball, get ball, Jamal Adams, that can, crash the play as well. And then, like, James Williams, I don't know what the deal is with him, like how they plan to use him. Jack Gibbons, like, I'm looking at all these pieces and I'm like, they're trying to, like, their best attributes together would form one really good player. And now you've got
why
all
do we
these
want
guys.
Jamal Adams?
Because he gets on base.
Thank you. There we
Because
go.
he gets on base.
How
He
does
gets
that,
on base,
like,
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
We're quoting Moneyball now. But I feel like the problem here that I am so hung up on is that they have all these guys that are not very dynamic players.
Mhm.
And so
Are they going to platoon linebacker? Something you
that's what I
said that, and I'm kind of thinking
that's what I
maybe
think.
that's the thing. Maybe that's how they find Cedric Gray, James Williams, all these
Exactly.
guys on the field. Is that they're going to start platooning line, like how Texas platoons their defensive line.
You've been watching Ravens film. Let me ask maybe a dumb question, and if it's dumb, just tell me it's dumb. A big part of the intrigue and surprise with the Ravens defense last year, as good as it was that when you look up and down the depth chart, it's like there are some good players. Don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but it's not like they have bona fide superstar household names. It was just a bunch of guys that were really solid at their job.
Yeah.
And do you think in that way maybe the Titans are trying to orchestrate a defense where they've got guys that fill very specific roles, and they're not going to be superstars that are rangy and can do a gamut of things, but they do their thing really well?
Now, I would say I want to preface with this and make sure that I say this on the air, but, like, I think we should be careful just assuming that the 2024 Titans are just going to be the 2023 Ravens.
Why? That's fun.
But I think
they were so good. They should be.
I think there are a lot of elements of that defense that the Titans, in theory, are well equipped to replicate.
Mhm.
And obviously, Denard Wilson coached under Greg Williams, Todd Bowles. Like, there's going to be an element of pressure to this defense, I expect.
You know who they're
anyway.
missing is Jadeveon Clowney. If they just went and
If
signed
they just-
him,
if
they
they just
would
had
be the
Jadeveon Clowney.
Well, just get
2023 Ravens
Yannick
team.
Ngakoue, and then you got
Yeah.
Jadeveon Clowney.
I heard he's really good. I
But-
have a question. No, go ahead. Finish,
Well,
and then I have a
to
question.
finish the thought, like, looking at the personnel, if you look at what made the Ravens so successful, relentless pass rush. So you think, okay, in theory, if Jeff Simmons and Tavondre Sweat can stay healthy, if Sebastian Joseph
Well, I've heard
Day
one of
is
those
a
guys
plus,
stinks, so you can go ahead and throw that theory out the window.
touche. If they stay healthy, they should have a pretty good defensive line. You've got good man corners that you can trust to beat up guys down the field.
Get some coverage sacks.
Close up the throwing lanes. That was one of the more fascinating things of watching that Texans game again, the divisional round of the playoffs, is just like there was nowhere for CJ Stroud to go with the football.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have the two ingredients to replicate those things. The one thing that's missing is they don't have a Roquan Smith or a Patrick Queen at linebacker.
Right.
And even looking at the San Francisco defense, you see it as well with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, guys that have the range to just cover the entire field. I think that's the missing piece for this defense. But if they can kind of hodgepodge together this group of like 5 different dudes that work with a specific skill set that can do one thing really well, maybe they can patchwork this thing together to get through the season until they can draft Harold Perkins in the first round next spring.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, this was supposed to be just kind of a broad, let's see where the conversation
Yeah, how long
takes
have we been talking?
30-ish minutes.
We got to talk about the
Can I say
geopolitical
something?
structure.
You may.
I'm trying to look on Paul Karski's website for when he had Brian Callahan down at the owners meeting. I can't remember when that
Right.
was. Because that's when they talked about, Arden. Was
Like
that
March or something.
Yeah, was that before free agency or after free agency? First off, there's no search function on this website, which is a fucking travesty.
Can you imagine writing for that website?
I mean, that's a travesty.
That'd be embarrassing.
Let me see. Hold on. Maybe I can click Rashad Weaver and then maybe we'll get the see. But anyway, continue.
Why
Until I
you
find
while you
this.
try to find that, 2 things I wanted to note with that. I really like your argument, but everything that kept going through my head is what you said there at the end. The Titans, it's kind of like Denard Wilson knows what he wants to do. The problem is they just don't have the talent to do it. Like, as you say, you line up with a Patrick Queen, a Roquan Smith, and a Kyle Hamilton. I just kept thinking to myself,
It's 3 of the best at their position.
I could
There's
coordinate that
none of them.
defense. I could coordinate that defense. Yeah.
we talk about how, like you said, this offseason was like, you're not going to fix every piece. You're not going to fix everything.
There's going to be a hole. Yep.
There's going to be a hole. And it just so happens that safety and linebacker are going to be the biggest hole. And that's why we keep talking about it, because everything else seems pretty nice right now. But I think the fact is that kind of pivoting here, like you said, Denard Wilson is definitely going to try to do more with less. And I think that's how Denard Wilson has always kind of viewed his philosophy. As you go back to some of those Ravens teams who didn't have the best secondary the last 2 years before Kyle Hamilton was there. When you go back to the Jets when it really was Jamal Adams and nothing else, and even the Eagles, who they had the pieces there, but like they weren't the lockdown secondary that it kind of has become in years past. Denard Wilson has always been someone who has relied on some of the more intangible aspects of trying to rip the ball out, be aggressive, than actually do coverage.
Which is a hallmark. Hallmark of Jamal Adams.
Is something that, the coverage may not matter if you have these guys playing a Denard Wilson defense that just absolutely just rips the ball out and you get the ball back. And it's like, whatever.
I'd have to look at the list, but I think this is the best cornerback group that Denard Wilson has ever had. Maybe James Bradbury and Darius Slay, but who was the third guy?
Yeah. Right.
So,
was that a secret pro Roger McCreary take?
I'm always been pro Roger.
I almost said I think it's the best in the league, so I think it's not shocking that it's the best that he's ever had.
And this offseason, I've been like, my hot take is that I think we could see Roger McCreary as like an all-pro this season.
I love it.
And I don't think it's that big of a hot take.
Yeah, he's looked fantastic.
So I think what's the worst in the offseason is like, Roger McCreary is going to have a really great season this year. Like, he had a really great season last year. He's going to become a name among Titans fans. It's like,
he's going to put it together this year.
Yeah, the usual bull crap that you see in like the dead of the offseason.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, everybody talked about Roger McCreary. Everybody knows that Roger McCreary is really
Say that about Jack Gibbons.
Yeah,
right. Actually, don't say that, but if you're going
to do what Justin Miller did and say that Garrett Wallow, he can ball. That man can just flat out play.
If you're going to say
those 3 games he was in,
make it be about a person that's outlandish.
I'm in.
Let's kind of pivot here. And in driving here, I'm thinking about all the questions I had that kind of got scuttled as we had to pivot towards Jamal Adams talk. It's a question for everybody, and I'll start with JT. And it may be that the answer is kind of what we've been talking about. But one of the questions I had written down was, I think the four people at this table have a better finger on the pulse of what the Titans have done and are doing than anybody in the country, as good or better than anybody. That being said,
we know everything.
we don't know. Given that we know everything, what is the element of this team that for you it's like, this is what I have written at the top of my list? As soon as training camp starts, as soon as the preseason starts, as soon as the season starts, like I'm going to have my eyes glued to this because I have no idea what they're doing or how this is going to work. Like, what's the biggest question mark for you on this team? And the answer may just be, I don't know what they're going to do with the guys at the spine of the defense, because like that's where I'm kind of leaning. Do you have a different answer than that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I don't know what they're doing. I'm just more intrigued and excited to see exactly who comes out on top in the tight end room between Josh Wiley and Chikakonko. I want to see through training camp and through the preseason. We've talked for a long time about how Chig is just kind of like this jack of all trades. You can probably do whatever you want with him because he's just that athletic and that great after the catch and stuff like that, which is something.
And an underrated blocker if you subscribe to stackinginbox.com, where Stoney wrote about that.
There you go. Plug right there. But then you have Josh Wiley, who fits more of that Drew Sample, the tight ends that the Bengals have just repeatedly just gone back to the bargain bin and put out every year and have been successful still. I'm interested to see how they deploy them throughout games and in for first team, second team, stuff like that. Because I think we've talked about it through OTAs. It's Josh Wiley looks like a whole different person and a whole different player.
He sounds like a different person.
Exactly.
It's really come out of his shell.
Despite being he went to my high school's rival.
Right. And I believe you once wrote about him that the Titans should not draft him because he's a bum.
And I did write about
essentially what you said.
How I said the Titans should
Good
not
thing he didn't
draft
have
him.
a wife. He would have really attacked him.
Maybe Josh Wiley's got me on some bookmarks.
Right. Yeah.
However, that being said, I'm excited to see what he can do in year 2.
Stoney, do you have a different answer?
Yeah, I do. On defense, I'm just so baffled by what the plan is at linebacker. I just can't wait to see who's out there. On offense, since we've already hashed that out pretty well, on offense, it's right tackle. I mean, I'm rooting so hard for John Ojukwu. That would be such a huge win for the brand.
Of course you are. It would. It would.
I don't even care if it's what's best for the Titans anymore.
Right.
I just want John
What's
Ojukwu,
best for me? That's what we're interested
to get the
in,
right tackle job so that I can say, ha, gotcha.
Right. Well, is that how will you feel if he wins the right tackle job and then it's a disaster out of the gate? I mean,
the same way I felt when I was advocating for Jalen Duncan last summer.
I gotcha.
And then he got the job. And then I could just lean on my crutch I never said he was going to be a Pro Bowl player.
Right.
I just said, hey, this is great value. He's going to contribute in some games.
Zach, do you have a question? Or
I think the most intriguing aspect and the biggest unknown is on both sides of the football, play calling.
Ooh.
I just wrote on, Warren Sharp's book came out, and it's always a fantastic read every year, but I just can't, I just was baffled that, and I shouldn't be, that yet again, under Mike Vrabel's, tenure, that they decided they were going to run a lot on first down. And they were doing pretty good. They were about league average.
I noticed that
and then they jumped up to being one of the highest with Will Levis. I mean, it really just hurt Will Levis because Will Levis was phenomenal on first down. But then because the running game was so inefficient on first down, it made it harder on a Will Levis in obvious passing situations. And you could tell by ZPA's efficiency, all this stuff. And the Bengals are one of the highest, passing on first down teams. Now, I don't think it's going to be where the Tennessee Titans are top 5 or anything. I think there's still going to be a sense of balance. But I do think that they are going to entrust Will Levis more. But that comes down to play calling, right? So when you're looking at all this stuff, what is Brian Callahan's philosophy? We can assume and infer stuff from his Bengals time. But you got to remember, he was with the Lyons with Matt Stafford. He's been there around Denver for a while. He's going to be pulling from – and I think this is where people get lost on the Denard Wilson is just doing the Ravens thing. You're pulling from all these different sources. You've brought in Bo Hardigree and Nick Holtz, who are totally – they're not really disciples of the Zach Taylor kind of deal from the Sean McVay. They are more of a different breed of the offense. You got Denard Wilson, who's pulling from all these other sources, all these old heads, that are coming in. and all this information. That's what they're doing. They're pulling all these resources, and it almost feels like there's a chance that you're creating your own brand and style of offense and defense, but it'll be real with pulling in from different areas. But we don't know. Like, everybody's assuming, well, what the Bengals did is very applicable to what he'll do here. What Denard Wilson did at the Ravens, which he barely mentions the Ravens. He barely mentions Mike McDonald.
Yeah.
He really talks about Todd and Greg constantly.
The Eagles and the Bucks a lot.
Yeah. He talks about those two teams. So, like, how much is he really going to be pulling from that, and how much is it already his play style? Because at the Jets, the big thing about Mike McDonald when I wrote about him was that he puts his players in the best position to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you listen to what Jamal Adams said, that's something that Denard Wilson already did. So how much does he really pull from the Ravens? We don't know. And I think that's the thing, is like we can assume, and I think it's safe assumptions, the place you came from last, or the place that maybe has the more lasting impact on you right now. But we don't really know if that's what they wanted to do, or were they working under someone. So, like, to me, you have two rookie play callers on defense and offense that have never done it to the extent that they're doing it now. Now, I know there's been some talk that Brian Callahan has called a few plays here. And listen, Brian Callahan spent weeks coming up with this game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Denard Wilson, I'm sure, was involved in game plans everywhere else. By the end of the day, there's a difference between coming up with a game plan and then getting punched in the mouth and pivoting. Now, that's a big difference. So, to me, play calling is the biggest unknown factor, because that really trickles down to what your players do.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I have one on defense and one on offense as well. Defensively, and I think you were talking about this earlier this week on a football show, it's kind of what has been on the back burner of my mind since the draft, and I'm scared is the wrong word. I'm loathing it, because I think at least at first it's going to be supremely annoying. I want to see T'Vondre Sweat. Like, I just want to see what it is, what it looks like, what him and Jeffrey Simmons lined up together looks like, what he's able to do out of the gate, how much he's playing, just all of the questions we've had about him pre-draft and post-draft. I want to see those answered. And as somebody, all four of us are proponents of T'Vondre Sweat. We were before the draft. We have stuck to those guns post-draft. I'm excited to see it, but with any rookie, there can be a significant learning curve, and you never know what injuries are going to do. All of these things that could set him back, and the temperature on him in the room, just from a media narrative standpoint, is he's going to have maybe the least grace of any player on this team in terms of people giving him the benefit of the doubt for anything, because it's a lot of people looking to confirm their priors, and that's going to be really annoying. But I think by the end of the season, we'll have an answer that is going to be a bit of a told you so situation for us. And so maybe we'll come back to memos and cheers to that and laugh in the face of all the losers that are wrong about T'Vondre Sweat. But that's my answer on defense. Offensively, and this can kind of pivot to my next question, I'm excited to see on a large scale just how different the offense looks and feels, as somebody that has consumed a lot of Titans ball and is very used to an deeply ingrained identity. It's really a brand new team, not just in terms of personnel, but like it's going to look and feel completely different. It's going to be really foreign to fans, and I think a lot of people understand that. But the thing that has blown my mind the most, and this is my next question. I'll go ahead and give it to you so you can be noodling on it while I talk. The question is, what is the biggest misconception you think people, either in the local fan base or nationally, have about this team going into the year? That's just when you hear it, it grinds your gears. You're like, I think you're in for a rude awakening. Once we get to the games, you're going to realize how wrong you are for saying that. My answer is I'm seeing and hearing a lot of people talk about, and this is largely on the national scale, how, I really like DeAndre Hopkins. I really like Calvin Ridley. I really like Tyler Boyd. I like a lot of the pieces that Tony Pollard, year after the year. I like a lot of the individual pieces they brought in. And for agency, I condone those individual players. But I just don't know how they fit into the system. I don't know how they fit into the scheme. Why do you have such a fantastic group of starting receivers if you're going to be a play action, run heavy team that's not going to spread it out very much? And I'm sitting there thinking, they're going to be pass heavy. They're going to spread the ball out. They're going to be playing under center and out of shotgun a significant amount of the time. It's not going to be a Ryan Tannehill 23 passes play action fest like it's been for the past couple of years. It's going to look different. Now, how different? We don't know, right? Is it going to be a full-blown Joe Burrow, spread it out on every play? I want to have options. I want to go.
It will
through my
look different
reads.
to us. It won't look different nationally.
Yes,
I think that's the best.
it's going to be somewhere in the
They'll be
middle.
like, well, this is just a standard offense.
Right. It's going to be somewhere.
We haven't
in the middle.
had that.
Yeah,
Sir.
exactly. We've been pining for that. Exactly. And so I think for fans to actually know the Titans team, that's going to be really exciting. And I think for folks nationally, you may be right that I'm not going to get that justification because they're not going to realize it. But man, it's going to look different. And more importantly, when I go back and look at what Will Levis did in his 9 games last season, and when I analyzed all 22, when I listened to smarter people than me like Stoney who go through it, and James Foster and guys that can go through play-by-play, game by game, it's a lot of the same of, man, they were just trying to keep Will Levis from killing them. It was a lot of baby wheel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of one read or run, one read or dump it off. One
read and there's a defensive lineman
you're
on top
murdered.
of you.
Yeah, 100%. It was not a lot of sophisticated football. It was a 101 class that he was in, and they would not let him graduate. They would not let him jump a grade. I'm excited to see him get to the 201 class, the 301 class, given a chance to maybe suck at it. I don't know, but at least given a chance to see what it looks like when he does that. So that's my answer. What to you, JT, is the most annoying misconception with this team, you think?
I think on a local level, it's that the hype has never been. This is more just like a commentary on all football. It's like the hype has never been greater. Like the expectations are going to be needed to be tempered when they get 4 games into the season, and there's a very real possibility that they're 0-4 because they start off with a very hard schedule and with so many new pieces.
Once Caleb Williams throws 17 touchdowns in week 1 against them, right?
Sure.
I've heard
all to Cole Kmet.
That's what I've heard. Right. That's what I've heard.
And so with all of those pieces, it's going to take some time and it's going to take growing pains. And I think that tempering your expectations now is going to do a lot more because we can continue to stay here and say, Will Levis is going to be able to throw it to DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to have 17 touchdowns by the end of week 3. It's going to be great. Titans are going to win Super Bowl.
But JT, that's fun. That's more
it's
fun.
fun.
Your realism is not welcome here.
But and so that's kind of like I told you. I said I told you to be realistic about this because really, when was the last time we saw a team
with so much change
just from the get-go? I mean, even with the Texans last year, it took a little bit. They showed flashes, but CJ Stroud didn't arrive until week 5 or 6 when it started finally clicking for them.
Can I frame that in a slightly more optimistic way? Because I think people are going to listen to that and say boo,
sure,
he's trying to tell us.
That's fine.
I think what you're saying is don't measure the success of this team based on September and October.
Yes.
Be patient and measure it based on the balance of the season. Just be patient with it, which I think is fair.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Stoney?
So
you lit up when I asked this question. I think you have an answer.
This might be too niche for what we're talking about here, but I think
we're doing a taco show, and I think half the listeners don't even know why we're focused on tacos. So we're here for niche. Yeah.
I think the Titans. Listen, I don't blame anybody for getting excited about these wide receivers. The addition of Calvin Ridley, of Tyler Boyd. This is a 3-way the likes of which the Titans have not seen before.
Wow.
But
very hot rate appropriate. I appreciate that.
I think they're going to throw to the running backs and the tight ends a lot more than people are expecting. I think they have 2 running backs that can catch a ball, and I think they have 2 tight ends that can block and have decent enough hands. With Chig, you've got the yak potential. With Wiley, you've got probably the better hands at the point of the catch. But I think there's going to be a lot more 21 and 12 personnel than people are thinking right now. That was why I lit up doing the.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, well, I just
Brian Callahan, I would have to say, has a lot to it because coming from Cincinnati, we talked about this on the show yesterday when we were talking from a fantasy more perspective. For fantasy, it's going to suck because there's a very real possibility that Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears are out on the field at the same time.
Yes,
and the ball's going to go to one of them, and then the other time it's going to go to the other
cannibalizing.
One. But they're going to cannibalize each other. But for real football watchers, it's going to work very well because I think that in your context of what you're saying is they have so many more options. And Brian Callahan from that Cincinnati system, when they had a Joe Mixon and a Chase Brown, you either had the tried and true ground and pound method, but you have this little guy who's can just rip off a 70-yard run, and that's going to be a huge guessing game for these defenses every single play.
So Stoney's saying that the Titans paid Calvin Ridley $90 million to be a clear out artist?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I don't think the offense is solely going to be Calvin Ridley. I think I think there's potential that people could be disappointed in some like 70, 75-yard games from Calvin Ridley because the backs are going, the tight ends are going, like the type of dynamic where you get to the end of the game and Chigakonkwo has 85 yards, but Josh Wiley has 2 touchdowns and like 10 yards. That kind of dynamic going, kind of like what we were talking about with the defensive players, like creating production in the aggregate. I feel like they've got 4 players at those spots that they're going to use. And I think it could sneak up on people how productive those guys are going to be.
Okay. Zach?
So I got like 2 that just popped in my head.
Okay.
One of them just popped in my head when you were talking. And this was something about, making excuses for Will Levis last year, which some excuses are excuses. They're correct. But the big thing was separation from the wide receivers last year. And I've seen a few people write about, well, the separation this year will be great. Do you know out of the top 3 wide receivers who generated the most separation last year for the Tennessee Titans? Out of those 3,
like the new guys,
all of the DeAndre Hopkins.
If you tell me it's Tyler Boyd,
it is Tyler Boyd.
No,
That's
Tyler Boyd generated the most
That's
separation
crazy.
between Calvin Ridley and
That's
DeAndre
wild.
Hopkins and him.
That is wild.
The separation. Now listen, Calvin Ridley's maybe, he was off for like a year and a half or whatever.
when the Jaguars
But this
don't know
idea
how to
that
use
separation's
receivers.
going to come easy
Right.
for Calvin Ridley, who's probably going to see the number 1 corner, who DeAndre Hopkins is another year older. That's kind of been annoying to me. Is like I don't think there's going to be as much separation as people think. Maybe there will be. I think there's a better chance of that happening, that there is a lot more separation than maybe like, Jamal Adams coming back to form.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a narrative to automatically
Thank you, Katie.
assume that separation is going to be fixed because of Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, when really Tyler Boyd was still like average at separation. Just saying, we gotta
I
keep
like
it.
that.
Let's kind
I
of
like
keep
that.
it realistic.
Yeah.
here.
What's the other one?
So the other one is this idea that this offense is suffering a big loss from Derrick Henry.
Ooh,
Because-
let's go.
Because here's what I said. First off, this comes in many folds talking about these running backs. Because Tyjae Spears went on the radio somewhere, or either went on a podcast and said, "Hey, we are both going to get 1,000 yards. We both aim to get, be top 5 in rushing."
Mhm.
I was like, well, that seems stupid. How can 2 people get top 5 in rushing?
Right.
And then now you go and look, and all it takes is 1,050 yards to get top 5 rushing last year. 1,050 yards to be top 5.
That's a
Okay,
result of
most
the new
teams-
NFL, I think.
Right.
Yes,
Most teams are over 2,000 yards rushing as a team. Because you have like a 1,200-yard rusher, then you may have like a 600-yard rusher or something like that. It's really not out of the realm possibility that these 2 guys both get that. And so on the other end of it, to me, I'm looking at it as, Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard, they do the same thing, and I think that's a big benefit. This idea that they need a 3rd running back to be the goal line running back, I pushed back on this recently on Football and Other Efforts. I don't think that's necessary.
They need Hassan Haskins.
They don't need Hassan Haskins. They don't need
They
Julius
need
Chestnut.
Julius Chestnut.
They don't
need Dylan
need-
Johnson.
They need Dylan
They
Johnson.
don't need those guys.
They
These
do.
guys can do everything. They can do every phase of the game. They can run between the tackles. They can run at the goal line. They can run through the red zone. But here's the other thing. Why do you want to run at the goal line in the red zone? Why not use these 2 running backs in pass-catching situations and get them on the outside? Why are you trying to run them up the middle? So I think my big annoying thing is just like how people view certain aspects of the offense that just I don't think are grounded in too much reality and are grounded in the old way of thinking. Yes, Calvin Ridley is going to generate more separation than Nick Westbrook-Ikene. He's going to generate more separation than insert random wide receiver here. But this idea that he's going to be one of the best separators in the NFL when he wasn't last year, and he's only had like one really, really good season, and last year was great. I mean, 1,000 yards. Listen, Tennessee Titans would kill for 1,000-yard wide receiver to go with Calvin or DeAndre Hopkins last year.
Yes.
And they will get that this year. I do think both of them will get over 1,000.
Okay.
But we have to also remember that Tyler Boyd, his total receiving has gone down every year. But we also have to remember that in 2023, out of those 3 wide receivers, he had the best separation.
Right. You know who's going to have the best separation numbers by the end of this season?
Who?
Shaquan Jackson.
Oh,
Do you know that?
Is it because he's only going to have one
buddy.
catch? And that catch is going to be
Because he's going to be the
busted
first.
coverage.
He's going to be
Khalif
furthest
Raymond.
from the line of scrimmage
Yeah.
on the sideline
Busted
most
coverage.
of the game.
Jaquan Jackson.
Anybody else have any other pressing topics they want to bring up, or are we ready to?
I would like
Yeah.
to talk about Memos for a bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so this is a restaurant that is very near and dear to my heart. If you live in the Mount Juliet area, you might know this as El Rey Azteca. It's the first Mexican restaurant in Mount Juliet, if I'm not mistaken. And a couple of years ago, Memo was able to take it over, revitalize the menu, make it Memo's Mexican Kitchen, which we see today. My wife and I love it. We eat here all the time. My dad passed in 2014, but every Friday night he was still in this building eating a plate of steak fajitas.
That's awesome.
And he used to tell me all the time, he's like, son, we eat bologna all week so we can get steak on Friday night.
That's awesome.
And I think that's a great message. And if you value the Mexican cuisine prepared in the traditional way that respects the flavors of the region, this is the place to come. Great cocktails.
This is not Moe's. This is not
No,
Blue
this
Coast
is not-
Burrito.
no, it's
That
not
was
Chipotle.
like that first bite of that taco that I had.
Yeah.
That was not
Delicious.
my reaction. Was not acting.
Yeah.
Like if you saw it, is like orgasmic.
Yes.
So
And that's the same thing with the Pozzoli that I had,
We had-
when we brought me out here. For,
we came here for Mexican Independence Day a couple
and it
years
was,
ago.
Oh
Yeah.
my god! It
Yeah.
was so,
So,
good.
I mean,
My wife has started hearing me talk about it.
they've got the best birria I've ever had. Enchilada Suizas is good on the menu. Get the grilled jalapenos to start with. We love it here. My wife and I, my mother still comes here with me, and it's kind of a cool bond that we have to remember my dad. And it's a very special place to me. I'm thankful that they opened up their doors and let us do this show here today. We're only about, maybe a half a mile north of I-40 off the Mount Juliet exit.
Mhm.
It's easy to get to. It's worth the trip out here. For my money, it's the best Mexican food in the Nashville area. So
I would 100% endorse
Strong
that.
endorsement. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the,
awesome.
The link to their website is in the description of this live stream right now.
So
Do
check
we
it out.
have comments and questions?
We do. We can go through
yeah,
some of
let's
them real quick.
get through some
Was
comments.
anybody listening to this? Or
Yeah,
we just
plenty of
been,
people
okay,
were.
gotcha.
We can go back up to the start here where Hayden Fielder says, if I had one guess who was going to be the responsible one, it would be JT 11 out of 10 times. So
That is a
yeah.
Hayden. Respectfully, you don't know this group.
you don't know ball. Anyways,
You don't know.
Ethan
I think
North-
this is the first time I've been with you when alcoholic drinks are available and you opted for the non.
I mean, you drink at Double Dogs with Bill Callahan all the time.
well, that's a story for
That's,
another
that's
day.
insiders only. That's insiders only. Yeah.
Ethan Northleet says taco content. Deagle says he said when we got to the taco, he said he did it live. Where Derek responded, "Actually, seeing this now, I think you're all weird. I hold tacos towards the back of the taco."
I mean, I kind of do. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't hold
give
it. I
it a little
don't pinch
pinch.
it. But it's a
If it's
pinch
too
at the time.
long though, because then we'll go.
To
Wow.
which Deagle responded, he said, "Yes, but Easton cups the balls of the shell and
Yeah,
scoops it into his
All right.
mouth, extremely off."
This is still the Hot Read podcast.
Well, that's hot.
Paul says. Paul
Yeah.
said, "Joining from the beach, let's go." And
Oh,
he
how
said,
about that,
What up,
Paul?
Paul?
Yeah.
How can the national media not know Titans will be different? They obviously changed coaches.
They
Yeah.
don't know because they don't care.
Also says the Titans D will have very good veterans. That's going to be a tough task.
That
for
that
rookie
is
quarterback
an
game one.
understated pro
The lack
Jamal
of
Adams.
youth, or just the experience, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at Jamal Adams, Monty Hooker's been in the league for a while.
Yeah.
This whole
Legere
defense,
Sneed has been
not
in
a
the
lot of
league.
youth on this
Cheeto.
defense. It's some veteran players.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Roger McCurry might as well be like a 10-year veteran.
Well,
with
he's
the-
an old
He's
soul.
like seen some shit. He's like that guy that's been in the war for just 2 years, but he has
18-year-olds
seen
in
some
the
shit.
40s went to Germany and they came
Yeah.
back 40-year-olds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's seen some shit. Jeffrey Simmons is an old guy.
That's-
Sebastian
man,
Joseph Day, Harold
6 years.
Landry.
6
Arden
years for
Key is
Simmons.
pretty old.
Which
I mean,
is
Harold Landry's
You're
the,
right. It's been 6 years. That's
yeah.
crazy.
The
the longest
youngest,
tenured
I
Titan.
think, core of that group is the linebackers by far.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because Kenneth Murray's the oldest.
Yeah,
amongst
Jack
them,
Gibbons
right?
this is his second year.
Jack Gibbons is 40 years old.
Otis Reese also second year. Otis Reese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
finally, Derek said the offense you were describing, Stoney, which is a fantasy cannibalism
Yeah.
session of
That's a great way
tight
to
ends on
describe
tight ends,
Yeah.
and running backs on running backs. He says that sounds beautiful. So,
Yeah.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
I'm-
Me too.
I think there's room for, and I don't think it's likely to have 2 wide receivers reach 1,000 yards and 2 running
And
backs
two
reach
running- yeah.
1,000 yards. But I do think the way that all those 4 guys will be used will generate pretty consistent fantasy numbers where you're kind of like, maybe the running backs are a little frustrating, but I do think that I
It
would
may be
buy
Will
Titans
Levis.
offense
Maybe
at their
Will Levis is the
ADPs.
buy based on
Like,
the people.
Will
Yeah.
Levis is the buy. We were also talking yesterday. DeAndre Hopkins is the sell high after week 4 when.
I think I said that recently
Did
too.
you? Okay,
I think so.
that was our theory, and I think we're on
Oh
the
no,
same
it
page.
was. I think it was. Maybe I did Tony Pollard. Then I said go buy Tajay Spears at the end of the year.
Our,
the
our
third-
theory
the
was
third
that
thing-
DeAndre Hopkins is the only he's the safety blanket on this brand new offense
Yeah.
for Levis. So the first month may just be him throwing to DeAndre. When in doubt, chuck it to DeAndre.
Yeah.
I got a fantasy take, and
Okay.
I'm not a fantasy guy.
You listened, despite
You
that,
listened
you
to
listened
the
to the
show
full episode
yesterday.
yesterday, which we
Well,
appreciate.
Support my friends.
That's right.
Um,
Unlike this guy, hates podcasts.
I just
Buy-
don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to my own podcasts.
You're on podcasts. You don't listen to it.
Don't listen.
buy low from a fantasy perspective. The Titans defense.
I thought.
Oh,
about that
I'm
in the
all in
shower
on the
today.
Titans.
You're in?
defense.
Okay.
I thought
Okay.
about it on the
So I'm not
shower
on an
today. I
island.
thought about what is because I'm a guy who streams my defense every week.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have like
Yep.
one. I was like,
I'm with you.
which defense do I just want to pick up on the waivers after the draft is over?
For week 1.
See,
For week one?
here's the thing:
Titans
is
against
that
Caleb
I've
Williams,
done that
he's
2
like
years in
such
a
sharp
row.
pick.
Don't draft a defense, and then I end up feeling like I dropped the wrong person every time. So I
Well,
feel like
that was last year when I dropped Puka Nacua before week 1 when I had.
Oh, that was on you.
That's you should
That's
listen to
on you.
these guys. They told you. They warned you.
I know.
Okay, I think that's going to wrap it up for us. So we had a great time. Maybe there
Yeah.
will be a second iteration of Taco Talk one day. We'll see.
Yeah.
Next time we got nothing to talk about, we just want an excuse to podcast together, we will.
Let's see if they'll let us in.
We appreciate you guys listening. Again, we had a show yesterday with Danny Kelly of The Ringer. If you want to listen to some fantasy talk, that was a great one. Go check out Memo's Mexican Kitchen here in Mount Juliet. It is awesome. You will love it, I promise. I'm definitely coming back. This is my first time, and I've loved it. Until next week, next Tuesday, we are now less than 2 weeks away.
Training camp's
Training
almost
camp.
here.
Almost here.
Less
So
than 2 weeks.
exciting
23rd.
times. The 23rd. Until then,
You would think as a professional, you'd know that.
Rel, he's going in my stead because I'll be with
Yeah.
a baby, so he
I
should
knew
know it. Yeah, he knew that. Until next week, for all of these fellas, I'm your host, Easton Free. It's been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you then.
There's JT's face.
Bye.